We're near the end of one pandemic, but we are still very much in the middle of the mental health pandemic that's been going on for some years now. The trend lines are simply rising. Many people turn to the gym as they quote, a form of therapy to solve their issues. And yet we have kids now, because of the social pressures that come along with that, jumping on gear at the age of 16, 17, screwing up their endocrine system, stunting their growth, causing larger issues. And quite simply, we are at a point where too many people are on the brink mentally, and the fitness industry is doing nothing to help. If anything, it's harming. So why is it toxic, and what can we do about it? I'm going to give you some context today to kick off a series of episodes that I'm going to be running around the topic of mindset and mental health and mentality, which is something that I feel is incredibly important and intrinsic to every single thing that we do in the fitness industry. And so when there are issues, we got to address them. So let's get into the root of the issues. Most people in bodybuilding get into this sport or this lifestyle because of emotional drivers. That might be a feeling of inadequacy, bullying, a breakup, or just as an outlet for aggression. This leads to a large community forming of people who have really strong emotional drivers, who are very emotionally connected to this sport, people who have possible self-esteem issues or deep-rooted issues which are not being addressed. They're simply being dealt with through an outlet. And that outlet is health and fitness bodybuilding, and it is an extremely personal one. But the problem is, at no point during that process do you mentally process everything that's happened, or do you reflect, or does that gym session actually help you handle the issue at its root cause? It simply helps you to manage the byproducts of it, which is your emotional reaction. So we have a large amount of people who are masking their issues and not dealing with the core root of the problem, because quite simply a combination of therapies and solutions will always be needed in order to tackle issues. You can find outlets, and that's absolutely a healthy part of the process, but it has to be part of a larger solution. The world is very different to when it was when bodybuilding was formed and when the sport of bodybuilding really took off. In the 80s, 90s, noughties, people didn't need to worry about being constantly on. They could go, be dragged through hell for 11 months, deal with personal issues and turn up on stage one day for their competition, and that was the day that matters. But nowadays, most revenue for the sport of bodybuilding, or anyone who's interested in health and fitness, the number one way to actually make this your life and to make a career within this is to be prevalent on social media and to be constantly interacting with people, sharing insights, and basically putting your personality up for competition with others. So people are spending more and more time on social media, and that is the dominant nature of the sport nowadays. And social media can cover anything from Reddit, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Please don't think just because your social media is different that it isn't part of that wider social media issue. But on all social media platforms, this one included, you will always be able to find somebody who can make your life feel that little bit worse. There's always going to be somebody who can present their life in a better way, always going to be people born into money who, this life's easy for. They put up a video of their mansion and they're going to get the views. It's always possible to find somebody bigger or somebody better. So you feel pressured to present an idyllic life yourself. This is no new revelation. I'm not here to tell you something. You already know this stuff. I'm just giving you the breakdown. And also trying to relate it to why the industry is at the current place it is. People are spending lots of time on social media. There is always a way that social media can get you down or make you feel negative, whether it's direct interactions or just seeing others presenting a hyperinflated version of themselves and their success. But your life doesn't actually live up to that ideal. You're the one who lives it. When the cameras go on, it might be one story, but we all know when they switch off, everybody deals with their own issues. So what often happens is people end up in an endless search for the fantasy they are creating. They will look to genuinely manifest what they're showing the world into reality and pretend that that's how life really is, but there are some issues still there being left on the table, not being dealt with. That person is deluding themselves as to how capable we are as human beings of just pure happiness. We all go through struggles, we all go through pain, we all have highs and lows, and it's simply not human to present anything else to the world. All of this culminates, it fuels those extra gym sessions, it acts as a motivator for people. It's all the extrinsic motivation versus the intrinsic that we should be focusing on. And the cycle continues. People go back to social media after they've lifted and they put all that energy into the session. They deal with hate, they deal with negativity, they deal with the pressures of presenting the ideal. They have to write some inspirational caption when they're feeling like the world is just crushing them down. The cycle continues and it goes on and on. Now, one of the big problems here and why it affects health and fitness the most is because this industry is incredibly bottom heavy. The amount of people who are trying to make it are in that level before, they do this full time. They don't maybe have sponsorships. It's incredible. Everybody who's ever eaten a healthy meal is now attempting to be an influencer or stepping on stage or, is trying to get their personality out there and get recognition. So you have a very competitive atmosphere in those lower levels. This leads to, of course, people finding it extremely easy pickings for the online hate. Unfortunately, somebody like The Rock, or an incredibly elite bodybuilder will often not receive the same proportional hate as somebody in the earlier stages, because it's much harder to criticize The Rock than it is to criticize an 190-pound guy. If somebody is at this earlier stages of their journey, of course they might have lagging body parts. They do not need you to tell them that. You are not being constructive and you are not helping. Now, the paradoxical nature of this all is that those people who are commenting and providing the hate are a victim of this cycle and this issue and these insecurities and these personal problems, and they are simply using social media as an outlet for them. The people who are putting their physique out there and making themselves vulnerable are also driven by this cycle. So you have two sides of the same coin. Both people have got their outlet. One of them is through the gym and through fitness and trying to better themselves. One of them is through providing online hate. And often those people can be the same. It's much easier to go after somebody who you see as a competitor because you're maybe a similar weight, or maybe you look similar, or maybe, they're doing a regional show, you're doing a regional show. So it's much easier to see them as somebody who's worth criticizing, or people might be more likely to go out of their way because they might even be seen as bigger than that person. So they deem their relative value of opinion to be higher. But this is fueling something bigger than the bodybuilding industry. This is fueling the mental health pandemic we see. It just so happens that, in my opinion, young guys are especially susceptible to this one. And of course, I've been through it. Everyone goes through it. I get plenty of hate myself. But I personally know why I'm doing this. I have strong intrinsic motivators which I use in these times and I've gotten quite comfortable with over time. So I understand my motivations. I understand my weaknesses. I'm honest with myself. And I approach this with a very thought out approach so that when those criticisms come, I welcome them because I already know and I can tell them exactly what I'm going to do about it. We're all in this together, and I just think that it's important to spotlight these issues and the mental health and mentality side of bodybuilding because it's actually the biggest challenge. Getting in there and lifting heavy weights and doing all of that and competing for a show, it's a process. It's a carefully laid out and planned approach. That you can do. But the social media side and what we now have to deal with as a culture, it's different. It is far more painful than any top set. It's going to take you to the point of exhaustion quicker than a leg day workout. And it's something which you really have to work on actively. Because if you want longevity in this sport, yes, health and all that kind of stuff in terms of your physicality is important. But your mental health is going to be the one thing that sticks you through this, no matter what the circumstances. We've seen young guys passing away. The guy on the wall behind me is Luke Sando. We all know the story. I think that it's important now to at least create a regular touch point for conversation about mental health. And that's why, as part of this channel, I will be doing at least one video per month. The reason why it's not going to be per week is because I feel like these videos will take more time to work on. This is something that I've just wanted to put together as a framework to let you guys know what to expect over the next few months or so as I delve a bit deeper into these issues. I want to talk about the realities of living this lifestyle and the mental struggles that go on in the background, because that's the untold truth of why people make it and why people don't. So the goal is eventually to have a podcast, to set something up, have some guests on to talk about this. For now, I'm going to be addressing some relevant points at least once per month, and I hope that you'll join me on it. If you do have obviously any struggles, I'd love to hear about your experiences yourselves. You can drop me a DM, any ideas for topics you want to cover, anything you're struggling with personally as well. Obviously, I'd be happy to hear about it. I'm not claiming to be some kind of expert. All I'm trying to do is raise enough awareness about this issue as possible, relate my experience and my opinion looking at the sector as to how we can change for the better and create a force for good, because there are a lot of guys coming into this sport in a fragile state of mind with some extremely powerful emotional motivators, and we need to make sure that we're driving that into a positive energy and trying to give as many people a chance of success as possible. Be mindful as well that your chances of success will be based on your unique value. And the one thing that you can do to be the most unique as possible within this industry is to be a voice of positivity. Build people up, because there's already hundreds of guys trying to tear them down. And just bear in mind when you're speaking to your fellow man that we don't know the circumstance. Take a second to understand them before you pass your judgment. Anyway, we'll move on to something a bit more upbeat next video. For now, enjoy the weekend, and thanks for joining me.